This week on RSBANDB Update, it's Combat Week filled with Ironman inconsistencies on XP boosts, Elder overloads, and more. We also jump on the retro cosmetic bandwagon and detail how to rework 4 or 5 skills at once. Then we deconstruct the Ninja PAG and talk about bias. This is RSBANDB Update, episode 812, recorded Thursday, January 14th, 2021. The Art of the Rework. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of RSBANDB Update, episode 2 of 2021. Just Tanis and myself in this week. Nice to have a bit of a breather, but I don't think this episode's going to be a breather, is it?
No, there's still a lot going on. There's still some meat on the bone we can chew on.
Yeah, lots of good fun stuff to talk about. Lots of things that the community has actually been involved in and brought forward to Jagex, and we'll be discussing, of course, the Leeds Q&A and a retrospective on the Ninja PAG. But of course, this week is also the celebration of Combat Week. The 20th anniversary event continues in game, and we're going to have a bit of a chat about that. But of course, if you're joining us for the first time, you can find full show notes at update.rsbnb.com. I am Shane12088 in game, and he is Tanis79. And we were kind of let down this week with some of the things that we were promised. Yeah, we were. Did you know that those little golems in the Lumbridge crater were actually supposed to change to a different form of boss when you smack them?
Oh, no?
Yeah. Yeah, they were supposed to change, and they couldn't get that to stick. So as a result, we just have 2 little golems in the Lumbridge crater. You smack them, and for 1 hour, you will get combat buffs that are equivalent to an Elder overload.
Damn.
Yeah. And, there's more with this. So in addition to that Elder overload buff, you also get better chances for the rare drop table drops, which stacks with your luck-enhancing items like Luck of the Dwarves and whatnot. There's a greater chance to receive better loot from the rare drop table. 50% more Slayer XP. I bet Slayer spots will be crowded this week. And the one that
but there's enough room now. I mean,
you think? I don't know. I haven't done Slayer in a while.
Yeah, it's not too bad. Yeah, no, it's really not too bad. Not with the extra spots that popped in the play your own dungeon. It's not so bad.
All right. And the one that all the PVMers are chomping at the bit to use, no death cost this week. Remember David was talking about his 15 mil death sometimes?
Yeah, I mean, this is of course, this is a huge... this is a pretty good reward for the PVM community. I hope... I don't know, did you feel like you got that on the quest side, huh? Did you get this kind of value?
No. On the quest side, I'd be, I'd say, hey, this is kind of similar to the Elder Overload thing, or maybe the 50% more Slayer XP, but certainly not all this. And that's what I meant by feeling kind of shortchanged.
Dude, I mean, they really lucked out. Now, I'm going to look at it on the other hand, this is a great time to take if you're a PVMer and you want to teach somebody or you want to take someone out and you just haven't because you're in a good team, you can't take some noob, you're going to get griped at. This is a great time to do it. 0 death cost.
Yeah. I might actually try this weekend before it ends, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I thought about going and giving it a shot. I mean, what the hell?
Yeah.
It ain't going to cost me nothing.
Exactly. Now, there is also something else that people were kind of upset about, and that it's a question of consistency, is that Ironman can benefit from all of this. Granted, the rare drop table one and the luck stuff makes sense, but they also benefit from the 50% Slayer XP and Elder Overload boost.
That I don't know about the old XP thing. That's
yeah, and this was actually
odd.
brought up in the live stream this week too. And we'll skip over this when we get to live stream. But effectively, what happened with this is Maud Osborne said is that there's no specific document written that says this defines the Ironman experience. Ironman is effectively defined in the views of the developers that work on the mode. And there's nothing written down on that. And he said one of his goals for this year is going to be to have something written down on that.
Right, and I understand that, but you also, as one of those developers, you would think that you want to keep the spirit of what Ironman is. And I'm not saying, I'm not saying totally cater, give everybody, the fan service they want. I'm saying just stay true to the idea, and I don't think that an Elder Overload, which is one of the most difficult things you could ever achieve.
I think the more egregious one is a 50% Slayer boost.
Well, right, that one's bad too. But they're both kind of against the spirit of what Ironman.
Because the luck buff, you still need to make your own luck of the dwarves if you want that to stack. And, you can also maybe question if Ironman should get a buff to the rare drop table.
They live with the buff to the rare drop table. Have you ever heard of Ironman?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think I have some of that, honestly.
Well, you probably do, Shane. You got all the other kind.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I'm not an Ironman, so I don't feel comfortable making a definitive say on the way this should be. But if I did play an Ironman, you got to really consider at this point that if you're having this kind of boost on 50% Slayer XP, but you can't take part in double XP live and you can't use bonus XP, that's where the disconnect is. And your account has kind of been poisoned by that.
Well, where's the consistency on that?
Exactly. And that's what it comes down to. It's an issue of consistency.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. This is, I think, something that's largely confined to the parts of the internet. I don't know if a normal Ironman character out there would be concerned about this.
I'm sure some do and some aren't.
Right.
Part of the Ironman experience. Here I am talking like I have one. I don't, but I thought you did. That part of that experience is, the sense of accomplishment you get yourself by doing it all yourself. But I know there's plenty of other people that did Ironman because they were pure scoreboards. And this was a fresh, no XP start. And so they have a legitimate concern.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, totally. I wonder if they got to use the lamp from last week's mini quest.
Do they get to use quest lamps? I don't think so.
No, I don't think so. But in any case, let us know what you think about this and what should be done going forward, because I think that's an interesting discussion that I'd like to have as well. So if you have thoughts on this, send them in to us. All right, let's move on to the patch notes, and then we'll get to the juicy meat of the week. So in patch notes this week, starting with some quest improvements, Violet's animations, facial animations have been updated. Shame we can't do those quests again to see that, eh? Because this is listed as an improvement, not a fixed. So, this is listed as an improvement, not a fix. Not a bug fix.
What's the difference?
Well, a bug fix is something that's broken and wasn't working before. But the way I see it as an improvement is that it was passable as is, and they're just taking it up one further level.
Oh, well, okay.
Yeah, that's what I see.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess. That's replayable question.
Yeah,
Let's get it bumped up
yeah,
there.
I know.
Let's get it bumped up.
I know. I'd like that too, but I know, based on what I've heard and read about how the system's set up, not really feasible with the way the game states are saved, which is unfortunate. But in other quest fixes now, a certain cutscene will now play properly after using Leela to teleport during the Do No Evil quest. You're no longer required to unequip and re-equip the Mourner's outfit in order to enter the head Mourner's house during Morning's End Part 1. The hat worn during the Rune Guardians test in Rune Mysteries will now change color as expected without having to re-equip it. That's important because that's, a key part of that quest. Slayer Masters can no longer assign corrupted creatures as a task when the prerequisite quests have not been completed, having flashbacks there to early Slayer in 2005. Achievements-wise, the duplicate Dracul's plushie has been removed from the Lost Toys achievement, and this won't affect those who have already completed it. The Sharks for the Good Elf achievement can now be completed using the Deposit All button, and the Hard Sears Village achievement, Beware of the Dog, can now be completed by using the right-click select destination option. I have no idea what any of these are. I think the only one I'm aware of is Sharks for the Good Elf is related to something in the elf camp. We also have some changes to text in-game. A large number of grammatical issues and inconsistencies have been fixed in level-up messages. A duplicate exam and text on Olaf's sunken boat has been corrected. Then, other improvements. Various bosses around the game have taken off their Santa hats for another year. I still haven't done that because I'm not sure what I want to wear this year. You can now add runes to urns from your rune pouch. All right. Raw beast meat can now be fed to carnivorous animals on the manor farm. What the heck is raw beast meat, anyways?
That's what I was thinking. I was like, is this a Dr. Seuss book? And the roast beast was...
Raw beast meat is dropped by Razorback Kebits.
Okay.
From the hunter skill. Yeah,
nope. But everyone's got a big old pile of those.
We know how Mod Mark feels about Hunter. Players who have not completed Tutorial Island can now receive their Prime Gaming rewards on login. All right. Mackers can now be spoken to in the POH. The green smoke in the Fight Club boss fight can now be cleared during the cutscene transition so that it won't KO players. Or sorry, will now.
What's this about green smoke KOing players? Well, that's surely never happened before, has it?
You're having flashbacks to Dimension of the Damned, aren't you?
That's the PTSD. It's kicking in.
Tighten security on the Oddman store and Rare Token store. I'm assuming that means you need a bank pin now, unless there's something else with this that I'm not aware of. Saren spells now display the correct icons when used. The Agility and Hunter training minimap icons now display correctly when the Legacy map icon option is enabled. You think we'd ever need to get rid of this option?
The Legacy option altogether?
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that. When are we going to get rid of Legacy? But it's a topic for another day.
That's a bit for another day.
Yeah, I don't want to really touch that one yet. I know there are some people who still rely on that. Erethror's Grimoire is now activated upon death. The Dowsing Rod now works as intended. That's something we haven't heard about in a long time. From Crocodile Tears Quest. Once again, Desert, Menaphos.
Oh,
You may now interact with the furnace with Dalt ore in your backpack without receiving a message saying you're not sure what sort of effect you would get by putting this into the furnace. Dread Nips will now only leave you if you move too far away. And the adrenaline buff icon no longer persists when removing it from the bank. Or the adrenaline earn buff icon, rather. And that's it for the patch notes this week. A couple of little ones here and there. I don't think there's much to write home about this week. Nothing utterly game-breaking in that respect. But, you know...
Oh, they did that in the first... They did that in the first part of the show.
Yeah. Yeah, but let's move on to brighter things. So the Leeds Q&A from this week with Mods Osborne, Mike, Liam with Mod Hooli hosting, and Mod Mike had, as he said, one of his boomer moments. He couldn't get his video working, so he's just on with audio. So that was interesting to say the least. But. I don't know. What did you think of this one?
Well, so I'm going to have to assume that maybe this isn't. I mean, it kind of is everything.
Is it what?
Well, I mean, at first I wanted to say, like, maybe this isn't everything we're going to get for the year, but I think it is, so then that makes me think,
they flat out did say that there's going to be other things that are sprinkled in between.
Okay.
So it's not just going to be themed on this.
Okay. Well, and I'm also wondering, like, something here is going to have a bigger punch than what it appears on the surface.
Yeah.
It has to.
Yeah, it definitely has to. But what we're effectively getting at here, folks, is that the 2021 theme is going to be the Elder God Wars, and the emphasis is on the word war there. We'll get to that in just a bit, but Mod Mike started off by saying that they're always looking to increase the size of the RuneScape team and boost the capabilities to keep up with the monthly headline content guarantee. And he feels that, the start that we've seen over the past few months has actually helped keep things much more active and exciting. And I think we can feel that energy as well, because you remember that run up through Orthan to the end of the year, we basically only had 2 quiet weeks in there.
Yes.
And, it's working from that respect. And the next big project on the horizon is, of course, the mobile launch. Their big goals are to bring people in, bring people back who haven't played for a while, but they are very adamant that it needs to be done the right way and making sure that these people are going to have the proper first-time experience in the game. And this is, of course, something we've been hammering home with mobile since the very beginning. So that makes me glad to see that, because you and I both talked about mobile last year when we got our hands on it. We said, this works for us, but you give this to somebody who's just starting out, they're not going to like it. They're going to, install the app in 5 minutes, they'll move away and give it a 1-star review, really. Just based on, the first-time user experience. Because I think stability-wise, I think it's very good on iOS. You had any problems?
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, I think it's very good, but, RuneScape's a complex game, and I think the reason that, OSRS has done well on mobile is because of the simplicity of just it's OSRS. It's pretty simple.
Yeah.
And I wonder if, some complexities in RS3, they're harder on mobile, but at the same time, if you are an existing player, it's the perfect companion. Like, kind of feels like it's a nice, comfy blanket. You know what I mean? If you want to do some scaling and stuff, and
at the same time, it can be the full experience if you want it too. And in this vein, they said that there's going to be mobile beta changes coming soon to the clients that are out there, and there's still lots of things that need to be implemented with that. So that's important. And they're happy that, like you said, it's not just a companion; it can be your full RuneScape experience if you want it to be.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder though. I wonder about that full experience on just a phone. I can totally see getting, in some cases, an even better RuneScape experience on a tablet. But I wonder if it's the same way for a phone. But then again, I am blind. So, what do you think, Shane?
I don't know. I'm not the right person to ask. I'm not a mobile gamer. I mean, my RuneScape mobile use is Grand Exchange checking, farming runs.
Fair enough.
That's what I use it for. They are working to streamline some of the monetization features, and this is work that's ongoing. And, this is actually really, really big news with this here. They said, they looked at some of the things that they've charged for in the past, like action bars, and the feedback that came from that, and specifically what the players said. Starting on January 25th, bank presets will no longer be sold and will be made available for free. I think that was something we said after the action bar thing.
Yeah, it was. We brought it up. And I'm really glad to see it. And those things were really expensive.
Yeah, and you couldn't buy them outright. You could just rent them, right?
Well, you could rent them or buy them outright, but I think you can buy them outright.
And
could be wrong.
This is important because the way I see it is that by having them be something that you'd have to buy, you're effectively saying that, this is part of the user interface. If you want a better experience, you need to pay for that. And that's something that a lot of predatory games out there do, and that's not RuneScape. So this is definitely
I'd never even seen that before. Like, I didn't know they could chop up the UI. I mean, come on.
Oh yeah. It's a common thing in some places. So,
wow.
I'm very pleased to see that, and everybody who said that, including us, pat on the back for making things like that happen. And they said there will be more things like this that you'll see later on in the year. And part of the reason they've been able to do this is because of other revenue streams that have come online, like Yak Track.
Well, if only someone could have seen that one coming too.
Yeah. So what will this be then that they'll make free? Could that be keepsake slots maybe?
It can't be keepsakes. That's too much of a popular. I mean, you know what I mean?
Because what else is there? You got the bank presets. You got the action bars. What else is there that you have to pay for?
Maybe they'll add some hairstyles or something. I mean, they're going to be changing it all anyway.
Yeah, and that actually ties into what came next with the player avatar redesign. The players will be brought into that process soon, and they said it won't be months, it'll be weeks until that happens. So that should be good.
That kind of surprised me.
Yeah.
Because I figured this was going to be a long-term project.
Well, you got to get in early on this one, and with that, you're probably 5 to 6 months away from launch if things go well on this. And, we know the most popular used interfaces in-game are, of course, the bank, chat, and the Grand Exchange, whereas some of the most used features in games or things that are on your character are, of course, your capes, because we know how much of a lightning rod that was when that was last touched. So anything that touches the fashionscape, I think needs to be treaded on carefully, and that's why you bring players in early on this. And I think you said to do that last week, that the players should be brought in.
Yeah. Yeah, make sure that they get the buy-in into this.
Into the changes going forward. There's also going to be continual changes to performance of the client, including more better Mac features later this year. Should be interesting, I think, from my perspective. Ninjaversary will be coming in February, the revamp of the Ninja team. Which, I mean, hard to believe it's been a year since they've been doing fixes like that already. So, have to wait and see what's in store for that. Elder God Wars has been on the table since last RuneFest, and they said that there was a revelation last year that saw the team focusing in on just the word wars. And the way they're going to be approaching this, and this is what's new this time, is that things build up to wars. Wars take months and months to, scale up. There's ramifications. There's stories on the ground. There's stories from up high. And the realization they had with this is that they could use this to differentiate this one from the previous God Wars dungeons. So this is a warning out there to everybody to assume that Elder God Wars dungeon isn't going to look like God Wars Dungeon 2 or God Wars Dungeon 1. And they've been dropping the word dungeon from that, and they've just been saying Elder God Wars. So I think that's what we have to focus on with this. And their main creative spark for 2021 will, of course, be the Elder God Wars.
Elder God Wars, the new raid.
Yeah, that could be that. I mean, there could be that kind of combat experience going on. They said they want to talk to lots of different kinds of players on here. It won't just be for combat types. There's going to be stories that lead in and lead out of characters. And it doesn't actually start a long time from now, or ages away from now, as Maud Osborne said. We'll be getting the first taste of it in the next few weeks. So that's got to be the February headliner then, right? At least part of it.
Probably, but I wonder just how many. I don't know. I'm wondering how much we're going to get out of this, because they can tie it into a lot. That's why I'm saying, like, when you look at this chart, it doesn't seem like it's a ton, but at the same time, this one could provide. I mean, not archaeology level, but this could provide several months of kind of intertwined lore, intertwined
because we did 10 podcasts on archaeology last year, in addition to just talking about it off the bat here and there. We're going to get at least half of that on the Elder God Wars dungeon, or Elder God Wars.
I think so too.
So this is probably going to be what 2021 is going to be on that. And for everybody who is a naysayer about that, I think we just have to wait and see, because I'm actually interested now. I wasn't too interested coming in. I'm interested to see now what they do from the skilling and the story side on this, and that it won't just be.
Well, what if they wrap up
combat.
The Elder God Wars without a quest with this? This is the raid. This is the cutscenes. This is the stuff between this boss. We're going to be building up, but once the war begins,
you got to have one final quest if you're going to do that, at least.
You think?
I think so.
Maybe.
And here's the key.
It would be the ultimate, like, all in to see if it worked on a story level.
Here's the key, and I want everybody to temper their expectations, what they have been expecting with this. They say variety and differentiating the content is hugely important and will be seen throughout the entirety of 2021. And the goal is to have every type of player feel like at the end of 2021, they have been served with the content from this year.
Okay.
So that tells me that, like you said, this is going to be the all-encompassing approach on this. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I think it's good to do that.
Combat Week did not get that memo.
No, it did not. No, it did not. Nor did Quest Week, honestly. But with this as well, next month the activity pets will launch. They said they've remixed up the design a bit, and the GP pet itself will be a gold sync. And Valentine's Day will actually feature a more substantive piece of content than was expected in the past. So we have
the slime too.
Yeah, it could be. I think with this we have 3 out of the 4 weeks in February spoken for. We have activity pets, Valentine's Day, and the Ninja update.
Yeah, I wish I was feeling the activity pets more, but
yeah, well, we'll see how they turn out, because we haven't seen what the design looks like on these, right?
Well,
because
I
they've
mean, if you
changed
can
it up a
keep
bit.
sinking money in it and have it changed, then that's a great way for rich people to just set their money
Hey,
on
maybe you
fire.
won't need death costs anymore.
Hey, you might be on something.
But, of course, this was the time where they pivoted and went into the community Q&A now, and this is, I think, where things got interesting, and we're going to have our own opinions on these here. First question, is there any work plan that focuses on the graphical consistency of the game or graphical reworks? And the general feeling from Maud Osborne, at least, is that the greatest gift from graphical reworks comes from doing something emphatic and big. And the headliner of graphical reworks this year will be the player model rework, but that doesn't mean that going forward, whenever there's a chance with certain content, like they did with Halloween in the past, they'll have a retroactive look at that area or that thing and see how it could be updated.
Okay.
So what that tells me is don't expect any landmass graphical reworks this year. The big one is the player model. Which I think I'm okay with that, honestly.
Well, I think that's what we would want, right? Like we want, if you're going to do that, okay, but let's just focus on that.
Yes. Yeah. Will quests have a larger presence this year? Maud Osborne's answer to this, hell yeah. Or hells to the yeah. Exact quote. Maud Liam, who has been there for 15 years, said that there's been a long period of time where there was trouble doing quests internally, and more quests are planned for this year, and they definitely want to do that because it's the heart of what makes RuneScape different from other MMOs out there. I'm glad we all agree on that.
Yeah.
Now, in the current event, there's of course jokes about Elemental Workshop 5. Are there any chances of tying off quest lines like this? Most of the focus this year will be on the Dragonkin and the Elder God Wars, but in the spirit of the 20th anniversary, there will be mentions and callouts to favorite quest lines. So no gnomes this year, no Elemental Workshop 5, unfortunately.
Okay. It's getting a little worried for a minute.
Really?
I don't want to do another one of those.
All right. Well,
You're doing it with me. If we get it, you're doing it with me.
Just like the hot ones, right?
Yeah, that's right.
All right. The next question is one that I definitely have to talk about. And this is, can we see more retro overrides released this year? Apparently there are some events planned with cosmetic rewards that have a very nostalgic theme, such as a skeleton wearing some armor, and the team is looking to refresh a lot of things that are being done on Solomon's General Store. So expect to see a lot more of this type of thing, and it's something that new players want to see when they come in. And, you know, I think Maud Michael said at this point, if there's anything players definitely want, retro overrides out there to tell them. I'll use this as my opportunity to go back and say that, you know, we need to get some of that old 2004 era dragon weaponry in there, like the old style dragon longsword, the dragon battle axe, the dragon dagger, and the dragon mace.
Yes.
I would, however much it costs, I would get that. No questions. Absolutely no questions.
Yeah, no, I want that too. Because we have the dragon retro spiked and ornamental armor.
Yeah, but we don't have the
weapons too.
Yeah. And I think that goes back to one of the golden ages as well. So that's important.
And that was what those things were still like relevant when I started. You know, like that. Those were. Dragon ornament meant that was nice.
Well, you had
good stuff.
Yeah, it meant you had a ton of money and whatnot as well.
Yeah, or you at least picked a ton of mushrooms.
Right, in the swampland.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. What would you, if you could have a retro override, what would it be?
Well, I like your idea with the. I like your idea with the dragon weaponry. maybe some of the some of the god armors, like from early on, the like the trim stuff.
Don't we already have those?
Do we?
Yeah, I think we already have, the replica, like, trimmed armor and whatnot. I think we already have those.
Well,
In any case...
I don't know, man.
In any case...
Yeah.
The question continues on this vein. Is there any work going to be done on rare item tokens? And, there's some content updates and quality of life fixes in the pipeline that we'll see more of in the next few weeks or so. I don't know. I mean, what if, for instance, and this is probably a long way out, what if, we had that grand unified thing where you're able to use some kind of cosmetic token and you could purchase from this rare item store, you could purchase from Solomon's General Store with that. Because I don't think you can use loyalty points for the retro overrides. So, I don't know. I think
you can't.
I think this question and the last question, these are perfect ways to start on that cosmetic front and, just continue to push that forward. Because, I mean, I would jump up and down on that. I know you would. I know there's lots of other players that would as well. And, when you combine that with what's going to be possible with the new player models, I think this starts to form the locus of a new monetization method for this 20-year-old game, which is something you don't say many times. But
no. Wait, do we have replica barrows?
I think we do.
Oh, well. Damn. Okay.
Next question was about the Ironman discussion, which we talked about earlier. I'm not going to go over that one, but just a quick recap on that is consistency's sake. Now, here's a fun one. How many laps has Hans walked around the Lumbridge Castle? And the fun fact on this is that his NPC ID is 0, and if an NPC is added in-game with an invalid ID, it will spawn Hans. And, the easy answer for this is many or a lot. And, they are actually encouraging players to tweet an estimate if you have something like this. And, at some point they'll actually go around and calculate it based on how long a walk cycle takes and ticks and how many squares are on the NPC's exact patrol route. So I think this would be a fun contest. Calculate this up internally, come up with an answer, and then whoever comes closest without going over could do it. It's like one of those things where you have to guess how many jelly beans are in the jar.
Mm-hmm.
I like those things.
That's cool. It sounds like a ton of work to try to figure out, or for them to figure out.
Yeah, because they tried to do a back of the envelope calculation on the stream, but there are just so many edge cases that it took too long.
Right. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, and then the next one is, will TAP ever return, which is Thursday afternoon personal projects. And, the answer they gave to this one was that it became much harder for people to get things done at home. And the way of incorporating this now is to use the staff's personal input and things that are special to them in terms of influencing the updates that come out. And as an example of this, the past 3 yearly surveys combined with this approach is what influenced the second half of updates in 2020. And,
I think that's fair, though.
Yeah,
right?
it is fair. It is fair. And, that it's a perfectly valid answer. But it's not going to be satisfying enough to people because the TAP projects ended before the lockdown started. I think they ended sometime in 2017, honestly, if I recall on that.
Yeah, TAP projects were great, and we did get some, we got some cool updates out of that. But I think with the kind of like flow and cadence they've trying to establish, maybe there's just not really a place for that.
Yeah, and like they said, all the devs are busy and there's just no time for it.
Right, yeah.
And then you also have to factor in, is it better to do this kind of project, once a week on an afternoon, or do these things 3 times a year in a game jam where you get to, showcase it, and then if it gains traction, it will get developed. Whereas if, you just have a person working on something, for, say, 12 Thursdays in a row, which is the equivalent of just over, 2 weeks or less, actually, in terms of actual dev time, which is going to be more efficient on that. And, from that, I can see why it was canceled. But I think the important thing, and the way this one should have been answered, is that this is something that guides projects going forward for the entire team. And, it felt as though it was, kind of ducking around on this answer when it could have been just, instead, rather than having TAP as being something that's weekly, this is something we incorporate into the entire project, and it's not lost. And it was so good that we decided to carry it forward, and it's become part of our core ethos. I think that would have been a better way of answering it, because the way it was sounded here.
And when we do it in game jams, we get to bring you guys in.
Exactly.
You get to see how the sausage is made.
Right. Because, what they said was a good answer. I'm not going to take that away from them.
Right.
But it just could have been answered in so much more of a punchy way that would have made anybody who was doubting it kind of just, move on from it.
Yeah. Well, that's some win bigly stuff right there, Shane.
Well,
straight up.
I mean, when it comes to communicating, if something could be said in a more punchy way, that's something I'm going to point out, because we do this podcast here as a way of kind of bridging that gap between what is said in these live streams and what the players want to hear. But at the same time, we know the way players think about things, and we know the way Jagex should hear these things. And sometimes those two things don't mesh up, and that's that's precisely what we had right here in this case.
Yeah.
Bit of each, honestly, on that. Bit of the players not understanding and bit of Jagex not understanding, I feel. Will there be a 20-year veteran cape? Yes. There will be.
Well, hell yeah.
And they've actually started concepting it so that it wouldn't conflict too much with the 20-year anniversary cape. And this will come out next February.
Okay.
Because that's when they started tracking accounts.
30
February,
or something, I might get
February
mine.
2002.
Right. Makes sense.
Okie dokie. Strap in for this one, because I know you feel passionately about this next one here, this next question.
Here we go.
Is the team looking at a woodcutting/fletching rework? And, the answer to this one is skill reworks are still very much a thing. There are other skills than those two that Mod Osborne would like to see reworked. Mod Osborne is in favor of it for a mining and smithing style rework for ranged, but of course that will also touch crafting and fletching and whatnot. And I know your answer to this one, which is...
How many times do you have to take yes for an answer?
Yeah. And, there's other questions that actually touched on this as well, and you can kind of see that was a general theme that players were interested in with this one. It also came up in the idea of asking for a trimmed masterwork type of item for ranged and magic. Because, they have the metrics that Masterwork has done really well. Players like assembling it. It does well for the syncs that it creates in-game. And they definitely want to do more of them, this type of thing in the future. But the question is, should the ranged and magic Masterwork come with a ranged and magic type of mining and smithing rework, or should it come with something else on its own? And this is the interesting part here, and I want to answer this question for us in two ways, because I think you do definitely need to do a bit of a mining and smithing style thing for mage and ranged, in terms of making it so that the things that you make at level 99 and whatnot and 90 are worthwhile in the crafting skill. So part one on this is, would you put that masterwork stuff out with a ranged magic mining and smithing style rework, or would you just put it out now?
No, I mean, so number one, I'd split those two, right? Like, I understand wanting to do it at the same time, but part of their pushback on the mining and smithing type reworks is it was two skills being reworked, right? Yes, they worked together. Yes, they had to be done together, but magic and range don't necessarily have to do that. Really, all you need is a little bit of adjusting on the tiers of range, and then a rework to kind of crafting and adding in that masterwork item. So I think you could split those.
All right. Personally, I think, like you said, you could maybe just do a bit on the top here with, the crafting and whatnot side for ranged, and maybe rune crafting for magic. But then, with this, you're touching so many skills, and you can't, do a mining and smithing style rework for crafting, ranged, magic, fletching, and woodcutting all in once, just because it permeates outwards like that.
Yeah.
So I think, if anything, what you'd see is you'd just see changes to the crafting and fletching on the, well, and I mean, that even adds more to it. So I guess just crafting on there, and maybe rune crafting tie-in for the magic side. But I think you just have to do a tier rebalance for the ranged and magic mining and smithing rework, as people are calling it.
Yeah.
I think that's what
like
it would
I said,
be.
I mean, I think you split that range side of things and the magic side of things. So the magic rune crafting, that's one rework, and crafting and range is the other.
Okay, that's interesting. And then I guess the second part of this is that, are there any other skills other than these ones that we're talking about here that you'd like to see get the mining and smithing treatment?
I think we have a bit that talks about it.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Sirion came up with wrote a real nice
Agility.
article. Pretty sure we talked about it on
Agility.
On a bit.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, agility is a good one. I think you could do.
Yeah.
I'm actually kind of lukewarm on construction right now. Oh, okay. You want construction? I'm kind of lukewarm on it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I would love construction. I mean, I think that is a really nice thing that is in most MMOs, and we need a new house here, so we need new construction. It needs to be expanded.
And then we're back to the discussion we had on the contracts episode. Do you view the construction rework as a POH rework, or do you view it as adding more things on the surface world?
Right, and it is exactly like what I kept saying the bank rework is. If you don't touch the POH, you will not have the perception of a construction rework.
Yeah, and we know how big of a job that would be.
Bottom line.
And just to recap,
well, I mean, you can rip it out and put something new in for all I care, but you have to do something with the POH.
Yeah. And talking about agility, it would effectively become a support skill. It would allow you to turn ranged into a kind of a rogue-like, stealthy kind of combat experience. It would lean into combat. It would involve decoupling shortcuts from agility. And it might have some new training methods involved in it as well. That was a very, very fun monthly bit on that one. But the one that I'm feeling the most out of everything we've talked about, and this is why I said I'm lukewarm on construction, is actually wood cutting.
Well, I see some wood cutting reworks, huh?
Yeah.
It needs something.
Because...
Pretty boring.
And here's why. You can get all the logs you need from PVM. And the logs only fletch, level 50 things.
It now.
Right.
Yeah.
Like the logs only fletch level 50 things, which is okay. Big whoop. That's, boring. Unless you're going to burn them.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm actually going to go with what the original questioner here said, and I think that wood cutting fletching would be the way that I would go personally on this.
Well, and see, I can see at least three different reworks here, because like what you're just talking about, wood cutting and fletching would go together with a masterwork style
range set
bow or something.
Yeah,
something like that. Whereas the crafting would have the armor, like the master.
Right. Right.
So you actually have 3 pairs here.
3 pairs of reworks that you can do. And then that all range needs is really the tier rebalance, because you have wonderful stuff already up high. So, and then you can, so range just gets a tier rebalance, and then you can look at this as a standalone crafting rework on its own, perhaps, which would give you the masterwork style armor. Then you could do a wood cutting / fletching kind of thing that would give you the weapon and its ammunition. And then, maybe with the crafting one, just lean a little bit into rune crafting. And I think problem solved with that. It's really not that big of a deal, is it, after all?
It's not.
And then after, on the side, you have the option of doing a construction bit with construction and the POH, like you said, with maybe some surface level stuff. Or you could go all the way and, rip agility out and start fresh on that. So I think we've just outlined a number of good options with this. So that's good.
Yeah,
I like it. All right. Next up, will Hattie and Skull return, and will there be events like winter weekends and the beach? Hattie and Skull aren't coming back this year, as we can see at this point. If they was to come back, they would like to add more onto it and improve it in terms of rewards. And I don't know about you, but that event stayed the same for 8 or 9 years basically. And by the time it came in last year, I was like, oh my gosh, here we go again.
Yeah, the first few years I did really like it. It was like a fun thing I looked forward to, but then it was just, it was too much of the...
Yeah, because, there were 3 little things to kill, and they were there for a week and a bit, and you got some bonus XP, and that was all you got. But in terms of regulars like the beach, they're trying to figure out how that fits in this year with the 20th anniversary theme. But the other seasonal events will be coming this year, including Easter and Halloween and Christmas, which is good.
Okay.
And they want to continue the trend that started last year with Halloween, of building on year over year and using the same general area. Now, here's another question.
Yeah, I think that worked out well.
Now, here's another question that could have been handled a bit differently here. And I feel like there were 2 different discussions that needed to happen with this. And, when speaking in terms of modernizations, are things like server performance covered? And the answer given here, which was woefully inadequate, was that these things are always looked at as the game grows and with mobile and whenever technical changes are made. But I don't think that's what the people were talking about with this. In particular, I think what was being talked about was some of the issues that, you see if you go to a very busy world where, I think this was seen last Double XP live event. There were worlds where, the craft encounters that were supposed to take 2 minutes were taking 8 because the servers were so overloaded. And there are things in PVM where if the server is doing more calculations on the back end, you're resulting in more things like dead clicks and whatnot. And granted, I'm not a PVMer. These are just things that I've heard secondhand. And I think what would have been good to talk about here was how things like the tick rate factor in. The game only works at amounts of the game only ticks over every 0.6 seconds. But when you have, a server with 2,000 plus people on it, and everybody is in one contrived area, as happens around double XP events, you can have server load. And, it's something that really comes from the engine side of things. At least that's the way that I interpret it. But when it comes down to it at the end of the day, it's something that needs to be consistently monitored. And it's something that I think I know Mod Porky has been in on this, but I know that the CM team does look into this when it arrives. But in terms of the questions that were asked about this, I feel like the question that was asked was different than the question that was answered with this.
Yeah, it did kind of feel like that.
Because I think the question that I just answered was the one that the players were looking at. But there was just a very generalistic answer given in the Q&A, which, I mean, sure, we're in a very tight timescape for this Q&A, but for somebody listening to this and the soundbite gets out there, that really doesn't help anyone. So I think more of an explanation on that would have been warranted, and whether or not something like that can actually be fixed. So, and then we had the trimmed masterwork for ranged and mage. We already talked about that one and worked that in. And then the final question is, could there be a jack of all trades outfit fusing all of the elite scaling outfits together? And they said technically this would be a huge thing, and elite scaling outfits are already quite complicated, and chat came up with the title of calling this the jacket of all trades.
That'd be cool. But maybe how about let's slow down. Maybe a cosmetic jacket would be cool. Like if you had...
Oh, a cosmetic, if you had all of them, that might be interesting. But I think what they were going for was the actual...
Yeah, no, what they were going for is the actual functionality, but, I don't know.
I honestly don't think it's needed with bank presets and the whatnot and the like. Like, how many times do you need to have, one specific outfit, right? And then change it,
Yeah, and I'm starting
that you can't do
to
it with
think,
a preset.
Right, and I'm starting to think that maybe some of these certain things like this should be, fairly difficult to get.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Like I would want this to be something like you made. So for that to happen, we'd have to get to a point where all the scaling outfits were able to be made in game.
Yeah. I think we're still missing a few. I don't know which ones, though.
Right. And then I would want it to be like you had to get them, you did it all yourself. The whole overload idea. But you got to throw in some achievements in there too, right? Because you're talking Jack of Trades. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty big deal on that.
I don't know. It seems too much, and I am not Debbie Downer when it comes to that, but it seems a bridge too far.
Yeah. And I just realized I missed the question about bossing that was here. If another boss were to be done, would it be mid-tier? Or what would the design philosophy be for a boss? Because, you just had Raksha. And, this was a good answer. It's understood that there's lots of different people out there, and it's going to be looked at who is undersupplied. And the Elder God Wars dungeon may not fit the God Wars template as people have come to expect, and it will address a broader range. There are more ideas and things planned that address bossing that aren't even going to be addressed over the year, that are going to be addressed over the year. And they say if you feel like you've been underserved, this year will probably satisfy you.
Cool.
So you know what that tells me? That tells me that the Elder God Wars are going to see Slayer components, and there's going to be a boss or group of bosses probably that's a little bit more involved than God Wars Dungeon 2. But there's also probably going to be something that's scaling to the point where people who are comfortable with the Queen Black Dragon can do it all the way. That can scale all the way up to the top, which, I mean, they should be able to do, thinking about it. Yeah. That would be my hypothesis based on that.
And I'm kind of seeing, I mean, I definitely think we're talking, trash mob, stuff like that. But maybe we're going to be looking at a proper raid.
You're still on the raid bandwagon?
I think so. I mean,
wouldn't that be interesting if the raid was kind of like level scaling, right?
Well, it would look like ED. It would look like the Elite Engines, right? But only this would be the proper kind because that's its own thing.
Right.
This would be the Elder God Wars. It's the war, Shane. So,
right. And
in the war, you got to breach the wall, man. And once you're through the wall,
and when you're talking about the wars, that conjures up imagery and memories of what you would see in most other MMOs as raids.
Yeah.
But not RuneScape raids, of course, because that's an entirely different thing.
But it doesn't have to be.
Right.
They just haven't hit it yet.
And, maybe the success of the Elite Dungeons is going to factor into this too, based on what you're saying here.
I mean, we might see. I mean, for all intents and purposes, Elite Dungeons is more of a normal raid.
Yeah.
In most respects, but this would fit it better. Like the Elder God Wars you could really fit this instead of like cruising through a temple or this or that. I mean, this can be big open scale battle. You know what I mean? Like, I could see this being a Helm's Deep kind of battle. Like, we could do some really cool stuff.
Yeah, I agree. And the more we talk about it, I think you're right that it's going to go in that direction rather than what people have been thinking it's going to go in. So that's good. It's very good.
Yeah, we'll see.
All right. So moving on from that one. Player advocacy groups, the Ninja PAG retrospective. Or sorry, they called it the Recon PAG before then, but this came out the week of archaeology last year, and we finally got the full debrief on everything that happened with this, and this is interesting. There were 336 submissions, and 328 were accepted that were taken on either by the Ninja team directly or forwarded on to another internal dev team for review. 400 plus man hours of work, split across 5 meetings with the devs on top of numerous PAG team meetings. And, we got the actual meeting notes here, 4 pages of, they say, redacted meeting notes here, which I actually forgot to go through before we began here. But let's do it live, as they say. Go through the meeting notes, and then we'll talk about some of the things that were. Yeah, I'm not seeing that many redactions, honestly. Looking here, the first meeting was April 17th. Included an introduction of all PAG members, introduce yourselves and whatnot. Now, they also talked about the selection process, which is detailed here. Is the champion, who was the RS guy, asked large RuneScape subcommunities to nominate members of their leadership group, met with those leaders and made the final assessment based on knowledge area of the subject, enthusiasm to work with Jagex, and the ability to work constructively with players and employees alike. Then there were introductions from Maud Bolton and Kalaya. Bolton is head of, I believe, influencers or player engagement or something to that effect. No mustache. Kalaya is on the Ninja team, I believe. Then both the players and PAG champion inquired about defining encounter rate and were told to make an assessment based on their knowledge of how prevalent a particular issue is going to be with regard to the whole game and not just the subcategory. And they were given specific examples of differing encounter rates and would be asked how it rated out of 10. Then the PAG champion, the RS guy, screen shared and presented the first 26 items on the PVM tab of the PAG spreadsheet, and all 26 items had already been discussed and rated by the full player team the day before the meeting, and the items were sorted by impact rating, and each item was discussed in more detail. So here's the part where, everything that was PVM related was rated, and, we're going to see a lot of what these updates were. And you and I called some of these. I don't know if we called them on air, but we definitely called them behind the scenes here with this. Of the 26 items, 8 were forwarded to the appropriate teams and 18 were within the scope of the Ninja team. No items were deemed inappropriate. As for the 8 that were forwarded on, Maud Kalaya asked for elaboration to be added to the recommendations tab during the sheet. Following this, PAG team members were asked to brainstorm about a possible solution for the redacted problem outlined on row 26. And there's our first redacted item. We don't know what that would be. Point of context column was added to each page. PAG members found going through the items extremely helpful as it gave them an idea of what to prioritize in the future. Maud Kalaya was very happy with the quality of feedback, but expressed potential concern that there would be too many items for the Ninja team to realistically implement. Which, 300 plus, you can kind of see that right there.
Well, yeah.
And overall,
I wouldn't be doing anything else.
Yeah, and overall, it was a very productive first meeting. Meeting 2 was on April 23rd. Maud Carey was introduced to the group as both a Ninja team as a member of CM. And the meeting objective for this one was to cover the high-impact problems across the 3 categories of skilling and achievements, clue scrolls, and other. Expressed concern that some items would not be able to be covered due to time constraints. And having had just 7 days to work on the sheet, there are already over 200 sorted items. Moving on with this, I'm summarizing here at this point. Lots of 17 highest items, 11 within the scope, and more numbers to that effect. And on this meeting, we have 3 specific redacted items, which we don't know what was being talked about here. And it was in this meeting that the PAG team was asked if they would create a list of improvements directly related to the Grand Exchange. And boy, we know what that was, right? Hey?
Mm-hmm.
Then they spent a few minutes looking at Ironman mode, and 6 items were presented, which started a good dialogue about Ironman balancing in a way to improve the player experience, which, I think at this point we could say in 2021 has not been completed yet, based on what we talked about this week.
Exactly. But then again, it can only take one boneheaded promotion to
kind of derail everything.
Yeah, throw a turd in a punch bowl, as they say.
Yeah. Meeting 3 was on April 30th, and between meetings 2 and 3, Kalaya scope checked over 50 items that the PAG felt did not need elaboration, and this one also was kicked off by presenting interface fixes that were asked for during the first meeting, discussed 8+ interfaces that should remain open or not instantly close when combat initiates. You can see the combat focus here, right? The first tab was PVM. And then everything's focused on combat, but this is the Ninja PAG, honestly.
I know. It seems like everyone knew that, but
well, yeah, we pointed that out when we saw the list of names back then, right?
Yeah, it was pretty obvious.
This meeting also talked about 6 items in skilling and achievements, compared to the 50 on the previous PAG worksheet for PVM. It talked about 5 items for PVM Slayer, 12 items in Clue Scrolls, 20 items in PVM Bossing. I want to say I told you so, but we knew this was the way it went.
Yeah.
When we looked at the list, we knew this was the way it ended. This was a combat PAG, even though it said Ninja. And, 6 and 5 with 12 for Clue Scrolls. It's interesting. Clue Scrolls actually got it more than half that PVM did. But when you have PVM Bossing getting more than 3 times that of PVM Slayer and skilling and achievements, that's not balance.
Oh. But what would you expect?
Yeah.
I mean, if your experts are experts at combat, and I get it. They checked off boxes where they said, "Oh, well, this guy is, he's an Ironman, and this guy is a clan guy, and this
guy's a Clue Scroll guy."
Yeah, but what do they all have in common? They're all PVM guys. They're all proficient at it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Did not have time to continue through combat or look at Ironman. The plan will be to start the final meeting by going over the missed items, and it seems very possible that every single item will be scope checked by the end of the final meeting, which is impressive considering there are over 250 total items. And before the end of the meeting, Kalaya asked for roughly 15 items from each list and highlight them as things that should be prioritized in a potential PAG Ninja strike. And I don't know. I mean, like I said last year, I'm sure these are very fine people, Tanis. Mm-hmm. But I don't think you need to end the meeting notes by saying overall another productive meeting. I think the meeting notes speak for that on their own. And then meetings 4 and 5 were on April 17th and 14th, which finished the completed sheet. No items were deemed out of scope. Discussed alternatives related to redacted. And of the presented items, none were out of scope. 336 of the items and only 8 were deemed out of scope. Maud Bolton was very pleased with the distribution and quality of suggestions. Kalaya was also pleased with how the PAG went with regards to submission and quality. And with this, the items would be brought to the rest of the Ninja team and presented 2 different ideas for implementation. The first, doing 6 PAG strikes, 1 for each category from the sheet, or 2, doing a couple of spread out strikes with some items from each category. And option 2 seemed to be the more popular option among PAG members. Honestly, I would have gone for option 1 because it shows that it was more than just combat and PVM. And I'm doing this because I want to give these guys credit for that and to show that the bias is not there. Because I know there are people out there who see that bias. And if you would have done 6 PAG strikes, 1 representing each category, you could have said, this is what we talked about with skilling, this is what we talked about with Clue Scrolls, and this is what we talked about with PVM, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Which in hindsight seems like the better way, right?
In hindsight, of course. But, they deserve some credit, too, for, of 300 items to only have 8
that were out of scope. Yeah.
That's pretty good. They were serious. At least
and
it might have been all combat.
And honestly, that speaks to good definition of the requirements that Jagex put forward.
Yeah, I'm sure that.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it starts there.
Yeah. But there's other things that were talked about, and I just want to run through this list here because this is where I got a kick this week, and I know you got a kick as well. And we'll run through this list, and you tell me how many of these we called as PAG changes. Combat achievements.
Okay.
We did not call that one. Combat tooltips. We called that one. The Anachronia.
Okay. I knew we did.
Remote totem. We called that one.
Okay.
Grace tab in the achievements interface. I didn't call that one. Ranch out of time teleports and improvements. Didn't call that one. Adrenaline and power burst potion cooldowns. Called that one. That was a really big deal.
That was obvious.
Yep. War Priest armor drop rates. Didn't call that one. Friend and world broadcast preferences.
I think we did talk about that, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we talked about
we did talk about the War Priest. You're right. Personal Slayer dungeon improvements. I think we were maybe on that one. Tier 92 armor patches. Definitely. Search function for titles and pets. Nope. Spiritualized food improvements. The Fire Urn spell. Many clue scroll improvements. And many more changes cooked into our monthly releases. So there we have it.
Yeah.
What was that?
So I think we got quite a few.
Yeah, we did. And I'm going to say that none of the changes that were brought forward were bad, and I think they're very good changes as well. Mm-hmm. And based on what we have here and what has arrived since then, I'm personally not willing to go out on the limb and call this a biased group with malicious intent. If that makes sense. Oh, well,
that was never what we were saying. No. That was never our,
No, that was
what we said.
That was never what we thought, but there were definitely some people out there who thought that was the case.
Oh, no. I think this is more of a... this is just an internal bias, right?
More of an internal bias. You're right.
Yeah.
And everybody has those, and there's nothing you can do about them. But,
well, yeah, if you put me and a bunch of my friends on there and you said it's Ninja updates, how many you think is going to be skilling related versus PvE?
Exactly.
It's all about the mix of the people that you're getting to play.
Yeah, and that's why going back to those notes, I think it would have been better to split them out into one for each category, Peg Strike. But, information for the future.
Water under the bridge.
Yeah. And I don't know. I know you were kind of lukewarm on these coming in midway. How do you feel about it now that this is done?
So I kept saying I really needed to see another one to be sure, but I think at this point, I'm pretty sure. I think they can be incredibly effective. I'd like to see more, but they have to be more surgical with what they want them focusing on. Like if you say it's a Ninja PAG, you can't come back with 3 times combat updates. So whatever the next PAG might be, some kind of a storyline or just whatever the case may be. Accessibility improvements, something to do with graphics. But
yeah, I get where you're coming from.
But exactly what we said is what we called. It's exactly what we called.
Yeah, and with that, I think just as long as if I wanted to, I could make the argument that combat and PVM is a part of the purview of the Ninja team, and that you can definitely have, PVM style updates that are handled by the ninjas. But, the fact that, there was nearly 3 times those ones, and I think the second biggest was clue scrolls. I think you could find other things on the skilling side that should have been popped up in there with that.
Yeah, well, I mean, and the ninjas of course the ninjas do combat updates, but the way I view the ninjas, I think what they are at heart is they do a lot of quality of life. It might be quality of life in combat, or quality of life in skilling, or quality of life in clue scrolls, but they almost always have to do with just making that gameplay better. Just you know what I mean? So that's what makes this kind of weird when it's so far out of balance.
When it's out of balance like that. And I mean, that could be perfectly fine. It could have needed that because, we're not grade A PVMers on that front.
Oh, gosh,
that's just our observation from afar on this. And like we said in the bit answering the question earlier that, needed to be reframed in a way, this could have gone with some reframing. And it's not that I have a problem with that. I just think that the slight reframe on this could have made it seem as though it was a bit more evenly spread out than what actually came across in this list here and in the meeting notes.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know. Maybe that is also part that they were trying to do themed ninja strikes.
Right.
So maybe that had something to do with it too, that they... I don't know. But then again, we're not there. We're not in the boardroom, so I have no idea.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair criticism, and we can leave it at that. But we're gonna wrap up shortly here. But I just want to thank our Patreon supporters this week because we could not do this without you guys. So this week I'd like to thank Andrew C., Brock H., Cameron, Christian S., Cook Me Plunks, Diana, Duramax, Jade Gizmo, Jade W., Jason S., Joe M., John P., Kesky, Kyle, Lucky Ducky, Nora, Pernasius, Rastafa, Ricky A., Samantha R., Soup Finder, Stub Eve, The Naked Captain, The Lion, Tom V., and Zant. Thank you, all of you, for your questions. Or for your Patreon support. It truly means the world to us. I got a bit ahead of myself there for next week. But check us out at patreon.com/RSBANDB. For as little as $1 a month, you gain access to the entire back catalog of monthly bits, including our part 1 of 20 years of RuneScape history. For $3 a month, you get a special VIP rank on Discord and access to high-quality stereo versions of the show. And for $5 a month, you'll receive a special shout-out each and every week on the podcast and gain exclusive access to the outtakes that we use to make the clip show at the end of the year. And, of course, we're currently at around $150, but should we ever reach that mystical $500 tier, Tanis and I will subject our taste buds to pain for your enjoyment. So if you want to help us get there, you just want to support the podcast or see what this is all about, all of our past 30 or so monthly bits, check us out at patreon.com/RSBNB. And I'll just also note that Patreon supporters do have a survey that they can complete for the next few weeks. We're aiming to see what you guys think of our offerings for 2021. And you can find that stickied on the Patreon page. You just got to log in. We'd appreciate your input. And once again, thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
All right. So what do you got for pick of the week this week? Remember, we're kind of moving this on where this becomes the bigger part of the show than it was before.
Yeah, so I have a show this week. Last week I had a game. This week I got a show. So, do you remember Karate Kid?
Of course.
All right. Yeah. What child of the 80s doesn't, right? Or 90s, however.
Or even the remake of a few years ago, if you want that one.
Well, this is the original.
Okay.
So we gotta go with the original for this. But so there's a series called Cobra Kai. I know a lot of the listeners out there probably have already watched every episode. You've known about it for years. It's been around for a little while. It started as one of the YouTube shows, and then was picked up by Netflix. And it is the original, like most of the original cast, except for Mr. Miyagi, who's passed on. But it's the original Johnny and Ralph Macchio, and even Kree, even the bad guy,
Oh, wow.
Sensei. Yeah, he's there too. So I mean, or he shows up, eventually. It's just an awesome show. I've been binging the crap out of it because it's so cool, the intricacy that they've done with this, to where like you're really, when you watch Karate Kid, Johnny was kind of the asshole, and he's still a badass, but now you want to root for him. You know what I mean? And it's like, and it's one of these really weird things too, where like they do a really good job of making you see how the other person can view it the way they're viewing it, and then how the other person is viewing it the way they're viewing it, and they're both right, but they just don't understand the other's perspective. Like it's really cool. But I can't.
It's
I don't
very
want to say
important.
too much.
It's very important for today, honestly.
Yeah. I kept thinking the same thing. So yeah, but I know that there was a new season not very long ago, and I'm just now starting to catch up. I love it. I mean, it's got, flashbacks from the movies. It's got, flashback music from the 80s, like some serious 80s rock. And, and Shane, you would love it because the Cobra Kai, they're all about, being badass and being tough, and their sensei, no, you don't get a trophy for participation, like it's that kind of stuff. And it's just it's a really good show, so I highly recommend, and that's my pick of the week.
And that's on Netflix?
Yeah, it's on Netflix now.
Alrighty, sounds good. Well, for me, and this is something else that's also a little bit timely on this, and everybody's of course been wondering what the next steps are, for social media and Twitter and whatnot and Facebook. And, we have the unfortunate side effect of, in this day and age, everybody tends to silo themselves and follow only people that they like and agree with. And, you're put into a situation where the masters of social media are the companies Twitter and Facebook. And when you think about it, that's not how the internet was designed to be back in the 1990s and beyond. It was designed to be an open medium that everybody could communicate on and contribute with. And this is something that I think Twitter might actually end up looking at one day, based on things that their CEO has said recently, and that he wants Twitter to effectively be an open platform that anybody can have their own client on. But that's aside the point here. And the reason I wanted to talk about this is something that already exists out there, and it's fledgling, and it's been around since 2016, but it's called Mastodon. And this is a distributed social network. So imagine Twitter or Facebook, but imagine companies, communities, games, countries, and whatnot being able to run their own instance of Mastodon. And on Mastodon, you can moderate it how you want. You can let only certain people join. that you want. So if you wanted to run it on your own community and have your own RuneScape Mastodon, and you only wanted people who play RuneScape to be able to talk on it, you could do that if you really wanted to. And it's all built in to their platform and service. But at the same time, when you create an account, you can also join an open community that you can follow anybody who's a part of the Mastodon network. And the difference between this and Twitter is that there's many Mastodon clients out there, and you can use whichever one you want. And if you follow somebody on a different Mastodon server, that will propagate out through all of the other Mastodon instances as well. So what you effectively have is you have a social media that's not run by a single company. It's run by pretty much anybody who wants to create their own community and have a social media-based community out there. And one of the best parts about this is that it's very secure. It's built on open source software, and anybody who wants to deploy this can do so. And, there's just so many different communities out there that you can become a part of. And when you look at everything that happens on Twitter, from the siloing, from the banning, from people, being rude to each other, Mastodon at this level at least seems like a very good solution to that problem, in that if you only want to allow certain people on your instance and only have, certain discussions going on, you can do that. And I can join that server, but at the same time, I can also go join a different server that lets anybody play it however the heck they want to. And that's one of the beauties of this thing as well. And, I don't think this is going to take off and become mainstream, because Twitter has already done that. But I think if Twitter and Facebook were to implement something like this that was an open protocol and decentralized and distributed, we'd be in a far better situation than we are today. And if you want to read more about it, just head on over to joinmastodon.org.
Hey, that sounds cool. Anything that can challenge the status quo, which is Twitter at this point. Isn't that crazy to say?
Yeah. And I mean, we had we have a thing on our website called RuneWire, which was a Twitter clone back in the day. And if I was rebuilding that today, it would be a Mastodon node in the RuneScape social network, so to speak. At that point, that's exactly what this would be. And it's something that Jagex could run as well if they wanted to on that. The only unfortunate bit is that there's no interoperability between it and Twitter, so you'd have to cross-post between both of them. But maybe this is something Twitter will aim to open up in the future. But it's the way the internet should be, and it just feels good to see communities like this take off, and hopefully something like this will become mainstream, and rather than just the closed systems that we have in this day and age of Facebook, Twitter, and Apple and the like. So that's my pick of the week, Mastodon.
Nice.
All right, let's do some achievements now. Starting off this week on January 13th, we have Malchior with 99 defense, Chalk Barrage with 99 farming, Garajo with 99 invention on the 12th, Max Quest Points with 99 farming, Mike Strike 3 with 99 agility, Acronia with 99 rune crafting on the 11th, Dog Says FTW with 99 fletching also on the 11th, Daydreamer with 99 summoning, Jesse Pinkman with 120 Slayer, who is also named Flash, Snowlight with 99 archaeology on the 11th, and I believe you got the rest of them for us.
That's right. So the Lion with 120 ranged on January 11th, and then comes back with the Lion with 200 mil Hunter on the 11th. But I mean, they are a Lion, so what's that?
Very appropriate.
And we have Dog Says FTW with 99 agility on the 9th. We have Pop O with 200 mil attack on the 9th. We have Prodigal Gaze with 120 archaeology on the 9th. We have Underking with 200 mil constitution on the 9th. Then we have Raw Echo 9.3 with 120 Constitution on January 4th. Sparty Pants with 99 Fire Making on January 4th. And Taffing Spy with 99 Archaeology on the 4th.
Nicely
All right,
done.
nice job, everybody.
Nicely done, everyone.
Crazy numbers.
Yeah, and we did have a bit of a glitch with the achievements from the 5th to the 9th, so it looks like we got that sorted out and everything is coming in as expected, so that's good. We'll keep monitoring that. Those of you guys who know exactly what was going on, I bet you're happy to see your achievements gathered there. I'm glad to see that happening, so that's one of the things that I fixed this week. But I also, this week, just been continuing on that Yak Track push. I'm north of Task 40 now, so I'm definitely going to get it done. I think I've used, 2 or 3 skips so far on it. But, I'm also still working towards that 120 archaeology. I'm ironmanning it, and I have to gather. I have a list of about 3,900 Tyrian purple that I have to gather, and I got to gather about 2,000 more.
Yeah, fun, huh? Yeah, it's about 3 times the time in the caches than it is the artifacts.
Yeah, I gotta do that, and I had the money to buy this all out from the very beginning, but I thought I enjoy the skill, so I'm just gonna for 118 to 120, I'm just gonna do it the old-fashioned way.
There you go. Squeeze every bit of
because I don't know what I'm doing after I'm done this. I guess 120 Slayer probably, but
I want to enjoy hearing you tell me about that.
Yeah, we're gonna have a fun time when that comes up, definitely. And just a note to everybody, that does not mean I'm committing to do it, just FYI. Anywho, what about you?
So it's been a crazy busy week, so I haven't had a lot of time, but when I have had a few moments, I've been doing some energy collecting, some archaeology, but I'm hoping that tomorrow night probably get with a couple of my friends and maybe throw back some brewskis and go try to punch something.
Any ideas what?
Hey, so I know I want to try Tellus again, and that'll be a solo thing, but dude, I've gotten to the last phase.
If you do that, you gotta stream that, because I think we gotta have it on video of a blind person killing Telos.
That would be cool. It would be cool. So that's kind of one I want to do, but I'd like to go. I don't know. I find something to go with my friends and do what do people do now?
Next AOD.
Well, I know.
Virago.
Yeah, I was gonna say getting Brew to go to next is real hard, but at the same time, dude, he's such a good tank. He can just sit back and drink beer and hang out and still tank. So it's cool.
That's like me on Star Trek Online.
There you go. Yeah, I've seen some of the videos.
Well, I believe that does us for this episode of RSBANDB Update. We'll be back next week. I believe next week is minigame week, and then after that, we do actually have quest week. The first quest, so that'll be good fun. But if you want update delivered automatically to you, you got to subscribe, and you can do that on any podcast listener out there: Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, Pocket Cast, Stitcher, even YouTube. YouTube.com/RSBANDB. We publish a video version of the show there with nibbles and more. So subscribe to us. We like you to do that. And, of course, the best benefit is to you. You get the show delivered automatically to you. You can find that at update.rsbnb.com/subscribe. And, of course, show notes at update.rsbnb.com. And we'll be back next week for another episode of RSBANDB Update. Take care, everyone.
See ya.